Top transfer portal transfers. I could try to think of another word that would work and it wouldn't. But top transfer portal moves here in the spring window. We have talked about some of these. Ott going to Oklahoma, I think, is big. We've talked about that a little bit. But let's talk about this a little bit, Cole. We can start with the SEC and talk about some guys.
Joey Aguilar is going to be number one because I think Tennessee is still built to be at least a player for the college football playoff. I'm not saying that they're going to go, and I don't know if I would have had them in the college football playoff with Nico Iamaleava. But you need to have consistent quarterback play, and you need your quarterback to be really well adapted to Josh Heupel's offense to take that next step forward if you're still going to be in that range. Your defense took a massive step back, in my opinion. You are going to lose some pieces. It doesn't mean it can't be good because you brought in Colton Hood from Colorado, which is going to do wonders, I think, for your secondary with Boot Carter and Jamad McCoy. But you're still going to be not having that same pass rush. It's not going to be as deep. And your wide receiver play has got to step on up. The same thing with your offensive line. So if Aguilar can be as advertised and just be a facilitator, I think that Tennessee can still be in that 10-win range. I think that Minad Watson, the transfer from Syracuse, may end up having a pretty big role for Texas. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. Really overall, I think, quality defensive tackle. And that's been a weak point for Texas when it comes to recruiting the last 2 years. They've really relied heavily on veteranship, whether it was Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat. And then you throw in Baron Sorrell last year and Alfred Collins and all these players. You don't really have that next guy waiting in the wings. And I think that Minad Watson, who's a young player, showed promise last season, can be that guy from the get-go. You talked about Jaden Ott. I just look at that offensive personnel in general and say, he's a perfect fit for what you want to run in Ben Arbuckle's system. And it's going to take so much pressure off of John Mateer to have to play hero ball. And you're going to have a stable run game if he is healthy. That's a clue word, if he is healthy. But if he can stay healthy, there's an opportunity for him to lead the SEC in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, total touchdowns. He's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. It's what you want in terms of an ideal system that is going to elevate your offense. I think Ella Mosier, the outside linebacker coming on in from Army. I know I butchered that name. Ella Madozi. That's how I think you said it. I probably butchered that too, regardless. The way that I view him is he is going to be the Trey Moore of Georgia's defense. Now, Trey Moore came on in from UTSA last year for Texas, and he had one job. Get to the quarterback, win your one-on-ones, put pressure in the backfield, go until you hear the whistle. That's what you need. One of the few weak points of Georgia that wasn't talked about enough last year was their front seven wasn't as physically imposing in years as it has been in years past. And you lose Mykel Williams to the NFL draft. You lose several players to the transfer portal. You needed that enforcer. I think Mosier could be that guy. And then I've talked about Jack Endries. I think he is a phenomenal tight end. For my money, he may be the second or third best tight end in college football. And he's coming into Texas. And what do we know about Steve Sarkisian's offense? They love the tight end role. Jatavian Sanders had a great season in 2023. You talk about what you saw last season from Gunnar Helm as that big-time breakout player. You didn't have that right now. You have some young guys on the rise who could end up being really overall solid contributors, but you need an enforcer for Arch Manning. Rule number one for me, when you are a young quarterback, if you want to progress, have a stable tight end. Jack Endries can be that guy as a receiving threat. He has some issues when it comes to blocking, but I really like his overall upside.
Tom, we'll throw it to the Big Ten for a little bit.
Yeah, I think Ohio State has had a really good transfer portal haul between the winter and the spring. Two that I want to point towards, CJ Donaldson coming from West Virginia, filling in now at running back. And that, Sam Williams Dixon Williams, I forget what the hyphen is for his last name, but it could be somebody that is the next running back in line. But you lose Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins to the NFL draft. So it was kind of a big question mark for Ohio State going into the offseason. I was like, who's going to be the number one tailback? CJ Donaldson was a thumper last year at West Virginia and has been very consistent. I think for him to take the load off of potential starter Julian Sand at quarterback in his first year as a starter in college football, I think that is going to be huge for them in general. You guys know this, and I've talked about it on the show before. I am a big fan of Max Clare, the tight end transferring from Purdue to Ohio State within the Big Ten. And for a lot of the reasons I just mentioned, first year starter, you know what you have in Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who's going to be that third receiving option. I really think it's going to be Max Clare. And for a young quarterback, often your best friends are strong running game and a very good pass catching tight end. I think Max Clare is going to provide that as well. Outside of the Big Ten, not a lot of love for Carson Beck. Now, like, I'm not saying that he had a stellar 2024 and he is coming off of surgery on his throwing arm, but still what he could be for Miami. Mario Cristobal's done well recruiting and they've gotten some more weapons out of the transfer portal. Could that get Miami over the hump? Could they win the ACC? I think they'll at least fight for it. They'll fight for it with Clemson. I still like Clemson more than I like Miami, but they could have that chance to make the college football playoff as an at-large. So I think Carson Beck is going to be important, at least has the potential to be a big impact. And I agree entirely with Joey Aguilar to Tennessee. And it's funny because of the quote-unquote trade that happened between Tennessee and UCLA of Aguilar and Iamaleava. It's a bigger opportunity for Aguilar to have success now because it is Tennessee, Josh Heupel, the SEC. It's going to be more high profile. Nico, his big impact is going to be individual. And with UCLA, it's going to be, oh, well, they could make a bowl game now because that team around him is not good enough to all of a sudden bow up and win the Big Ten or make the college football playoff. That's not going to happen. But still, that would be a big impact for them because with Aguilar, it was like, hey, UCLA is going to be teetering on the edge of making a bowl game. Now you're looking at UCLA as like, hey, you guys could be a player within the Big Ten, not this year, but in the next few years, depending on how long Nico stays. So big impact. I think that's going to be lesser. I think the story about Nico is going to kind of fade to the background because no one in Los Angeles really cares about football. So there's that element. But yeah, those ones I like. And then the point that Cole was making about Oklahoma, the tandem of Mateer and Ott, I am super excited about. Like, that's the one thing. Even if Oklahoma isn't stellar this season and they don't make the playoff, you know they're going to be fun to watch with those two. I really like getting Jaden Ott out of the transfer portal.
What's so interesting to me is that we talk about Oklahoma. Oh, if they don't go 9-3 or they don't go 10-2, they're going to have a down year. If you look at their schedule, especially from Red River Shootout on, it is far and away the toughest schedule in college football. An 8-4 season for them, for most teams, would be 10-2. So you have to take that into context on what they could end up being. The same way that we had to last year about Florida. Because Florida, I don't think that they were deserving of being in that conversation of, oh, well, we got the 8-5. They should be the biggest rising star in the sport. But you got to admit that their schedule was a murderer's row, especially with the way that Miami finished, the way that Texas A&M had a 7-1 start, the way that Texas made the college football playoff. There was a lot of things that went in their favor that eventually helped them kind of get over the hump. They played 3 college football playoff teams. 2 more names I really want to mention that we didn't. Keelan Marion comes on in from BYU to Miami. I think that's going to do wonders in the slot and on special teams. Again, you know what Shannon Dawson's offense is, the way that it can be a vertical approach. I think that he can be an all-caliber punt returner and an All-American in that stance. It's a big-time get for Carson Beck with that speed. And a guy that we didn't bring up that I'm shocked that Tom didn't mention, Trevor Pena. I mean, you look at Deontay Ross, you look at Kyron Hudson, you had to bring in, I think, that slot receiver role. Now, regardless of what the conversation was in NIL funds, I think that that's a good fit for what you want to run with Drew Aller to give you that final piece that's over the hump. So I really do like the take. And then Bo Atkinson leaving North Carolina to go into Ohio State. You lose Jack Sawyer, you lose JT Tuimoloau. He may end up being just a third down pass rusher, but hell, if you have a third down pass rusher that can get you 8.5 sacks and 10 tackles for losses, I'll take that 10 times and twice on Sundays.
On Miami specifically, I saw an interesting tweet, I think from Zenith's. In the last 11 days, they've picked up 7 guys, 2 experienced defensive backs. I'm not super high on either side. The Marion that you mentioned, the All-American kick returner, one of the best running backs out of the FCS level, a starting linebacker from North Carolina State, Bern Arbern from Texas. Which
why they get Texas kicker? Yeah. I mean, come on, Zenitz. Why they get Texas kicker? Why did he leave Texas? Huh?
Yeah, not super high on that. Cincinnati's leader in touchdown catches last year. It's a little interesting to me. I think Miami certainly plays the game of, and I want to get you guys to take quickly and then we'll get on the wild card. It's a little interesting to me that you take that much right now coming off of a 10-win season. I know they lost some talent to the NFL. They didn't just get absolutely ravished by the NFL or anything like that. It's a little interesting to me that, do they it feels a little desperate to add pieces as late as you can. Now, maybe they hit on 6 of these 7 guys and their desperation worked out well. But it almost signals like to me, it almost signals yeah, we don't love where we're at right now, and maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm completely off and I'm just being an FSU hater. As somebody who Florida State is desperate in the transfer portal right now. Won 2 games last year. So, but I do think there's differing levels of, Miami's coming off a 10-win season, Florida State coming off a 2-win season. I think their portal haul here is interesting. I think the timing of it is interesting. And they've absolutely loaded up. Now, how good that loading up is going to be is up for debate, I guess. We'll find out when they play Notre Dame in Florida in the first month of the season and then go to Tallahassee right after that. But their portal haul certainly strikes me, and they are. Mario's done a good job of recruiting. They've not been bad there, but it seems like there's a lot of going and grabbing from the portal for sure that's happening, and I think that's interesting from them.
And special notice for Gio Lopez that I mentioned earlier on by Cole to UNC. I really like Gio Lopez. Even if UNC is a dumpster fire, I expect him to stand out.
I don't think that they hate their roster, and I do think that you're partially just a hater, TJ, just being completely honest. But I do think that there were some.
I didn't say the word hate. I didn't say the word hate. Don't like where they're at in some areas. I think
you're a Miami hater.
I do hate them. I didn't say
you are a Miami hater. I think that you're looking at this with this garnet and gold color glasses that is allowing you not to see the entire roster. But you and I talked about this last week. I am not buying right now into Miami being a favorite to go to the college football playoff, to win the ACC. I think them and Georgia Tech are right in that same range. I think that Louisville and them are right in that same range. I think that maybe with the additions that they brought in, I love Keelan Marion. I do believe he is going to be a difference maker for this offense. It's a really good move. But is that a move that's going to take you over the top to a 10-2, 11-1 record? I don't think so. And if I don't think that you're going to be in that range, I don't think that you're going to the college football playoff. And it's still an underwhelming season, I think, for Miami because of you're in the ACC and you're Miami. Start acting like it.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Power 2. This was part of a live show that you can get right now by clicking the link on the screen. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to College Football Addiction so you don't miss any of The Power 2.